Welcome to that session, morning session. We will try to see together what the title says, how financial services are leveraging the investments when transitioning to DevOps. So everybody's here, I think. Welcome to the session. Just before starting digging into the subject, I will do a small introduction about myself, who I am. This slide, I think you've seen it a lot of times in these days. Software is eating the world. I put that slide because I've been working for all the logos you see on top of the slides. This is the reason why I'm talking about that today. I started briefly my career in the aerospace, IN, which is a subsidiary of Zodiac Corporation. Then several software vendors, Merant, Serena Software, Opsware, that has been bought by HP, Cast Software, so both sides, development, operations, and a lot oriented on the financial services. More recently, because it's the actuality, Electric Cloud and Calitech. Calitech is a company that I own with some business partners. Just in a nutshell, it's not the purpose of the presentation. It's a company, a European company, focused on financial services on two main areas. DevOps areas. The first one is release automation. The second one is application measurement, so analysis measurement with tools like Sonar, Cast Software that measures the code and gives you an insight on the risks that are inside of the code. That said, let's go into the substance of that. We are talking about financial services. So why are we talking about that this morning? Because financial services have made along the years huge investments in some toolings along what I would call the history of what was not yet called DevOps, okay, what was called case tools, what was called application lifecycle management, and that is becoming DevOps in the last years. So a lot of investments, and these investments are today sometimes a pain for these companies that are trying to transition to DevOps, but not spending as much as they used to spend over the years. So what is important to understand, and I think that this is something that we all understand, that IT is the backbone of the financial services. Okay, IT is has been seen over the years with several images, several characteristics. The first one was magic. Okay, we all remember these, even though it was not directly related to financial services, but what the message that is carried in the movie Hidden Figures. Okay, the mainframe is coming to the NASA, and the NASA discovers something which is completely magic. So magic computing capabilities in the beginning, then some kinds of frightening big brother, because it was taking much more importance in the computing capabilities, knowing that we are talking mainly of the mainframe today in these capabilities, the computing capabilities for financial services. Although we will see some architectures are more open in some maybe newer companies. Now, with no doubt, the IT, and in particular the mainframe, is the backbone of the financial business. And since it's the backbone, it's also considered as some kind of expensive area, so the expensive bad guy, that we will try to contain in terms of spending. So this is the story that we will try to tell this morning. Knowing in 2-3 slides the history. So mainframe is everywhere. Mainframe for batch capabilities and online capabilities. Most of the financial institutions in Europe and also in the US are relying on the mainframe. Some of them, maybe more recent FinServ companies, have some more open architectures. But these ones, that's what we see in Europe, are most of the time subsidiaries of bigger financial companies that on their own rely on the mainframe. So at the end of the day, although the architecture is evolving, the mainframe is still here. We try to open with the open system, so the 2 tiers, N tiers architectures, and more recently, the containerized architecture, so microservices, containers, with all the challenges you may have attended. It was on Monday evening, I think, Anders Wahlgren session here about how to transition application from mainframe to containers, which was a very interesting session. So in a nutshell, we have that kind of evolution of the application, of the infrastructure, from the monolith over to client server, the N-tier architecture, up to the microservices. So if I want really to sum up in one slide with two pictures, 2 photos, we are transitioned from that big ball, which is the monolith, to multiple small balls that we have to handle, which is slightly more complicated. So how financial services have chosen to handle that, how they are transitioning to DevOps, and how they I would say, avoid to lose money when transitioning to DevOps, so relying on their current investments. If we try to draw an history, still the history over the past 20 years of the FinServ world, we have some kind of layers, okay? We have seen these layers between the 80s, it's more than 20 years here on my drawing, from the 70s, the 80s, until the 2010s, we have some kind of layers. So the first layer, I would call it the languages layer. Languages layer where the developer was expressing himself to create programs. So a lot of mainframe programs are still belonging to that era, where the coding was something, I mean, on the table, on the garage, there was no real method to drive and to control what was out of the developer's mind. The second layer, I would call it methods. Okay, methods means that it helped constructing software. So the first one was, which was something new in the 80s, put the requirements in front of the testing, for example. So it's something that we are very used to. But the tooling that we will talk about in the 80s had no ideas of how to put requirements in front of testing, in regards of testing. So what do I test? What do I send into production? It was complete fog. The third layer, more close to us, so 90s, 2010, I called it process or product, okay, where we could organize things. So a disciplined environment with best practices, with the notion of reuse, the notion of quality, and the notion of operability while developing, okay? So it fits with a third generation of tooling that we will dig into. The very last one is what we are talking about today, okay? It's DevOps. So DevOps means pipeline, process as code, deployment, release automation, applied to the real application. So you have the notion, it's driven by the business, okay? This is the real complete change. Development and operation are collaborating in order to fulfill a business demand. This is the era of the real application release automation tools, platforms that will be able to put together, that are able to put together all the toolings that belongs to the other years. One of the consequences of this, I will not comment further the drawing, but because it comes from the State of DevOps report. So there was a lot of speakers talking about the State of DevOps report. But one of the consequences of that, the consequence of the change of these layers, of these waves, is that we are able to deploy much more frequently, okay? What does it mean in terms of tooling? So we will see the tooling and we will see the benefits. In terms of tooling, I would say the first generation was build it yourself, okay? Build it yourself means that the developer was very happy to express himself with the languages, but in order to manage his development, there was a lot of scripting. A lot of scripting for which many, I would say more than 80% of the financial institutions I know in Europe have no idea of what these scripts are doing. Or it's somewhere, okay, most probably in somebody's mind that have left the company since many years. They don't touch the scripts because it works, okay? But it's scripting, so it doesn't scale. It's very expensive to manage. It's very scary to manage, and it's nearly impossible to make evolve for these reasons. The second generation, okay, the second generation of tooling, which is to be connected to the method waves of the previous slide, is the something that allows to connect the dots. Okay, it arrived on the mainframe with the environment management, and it then went opened up to the open system world, and we have it today with the notion of pipeline. The pipeline is really put together, the one after the other, the environments for which something will be done. Typically, I start with development, transition to the testing, then I go to the staging or the pre-production, and then I switch to the production. This is my environment management. What kind of tooling do I have? Okay, on the first generation, scripts. Okay, my good friend Avantika yesterday was talking here about the script apocalypse and version control system, just to have a control of what I have produced, what I have done, which will open up afterwards to continuous integration. But in the 80s, it was not yet talking about that. The second one is, I would say, stages and environments. I remember 10, 15 years ago, you started to put the food in a bank, and they were telling you, we have Endeavor for the mainframe. Is your solution able to interface or to deal with Endeavor? Because this is my belief, okay? Some of them had other tools, Serena, Changeman, these kind of tools, but really environment management. It was the main focus. So What was the connecting dot? Simple. What we have done at that moment was wrap the scripts. Okay, the scripts work. It's very difficult to touch them, but they work. So how to make the scripts repeatable? How to make to avoid losing money in running the scripts manually and maybe modify one parameter or a little thing. When I run the second run of the script, I wrap the script. Maybe I can put the parameters in the script along my environment, but I wrap them. Even if I have a no knowledge of what the script is doing or how it is doing, at least I can wrap it. Okay, so I can make it repeatable. The other best practice here is to, when you have the environment management and you wrap the script, then you add the security. At least you had the control, okay, the access control list. This is what the mainframe tools were starting doing at that moment. ACLs come from the mainframe, and it's the basis of defining who can do what on my environments. So it's a first approach. Okay. The second transition, so my pipeline-based second generation, is transitioning to the third generation, so the one in regards to ITIL, reusability, do more things automatically. It's what I call the do it your way. You add some things automated along the different environments that you're doing. So you are managing the testing phase, the testing environment. Then you add the automated test of what you are doing. So in terms of toolings here and of best practices, you had testing, you had QA, you had continuous integration, you had several best practices that will allow you to integrate these tools along between the two generations. So one best practice here. So repeat the same activities. For repeating the same activities, you have configuration templates. When you bring configuration templates, then your work becomes repeatable. And it will allow you to have a fidelity across the environment, and also, on the other way around, an inventory of the environment. This is what was missing with the second generation. What is where? What did I put where? What is running where? Okay? So know what is where is the inventory and manifest. Another best practice that we have seen in these transitions is connect to the change management. Okay, this is the opportunity to connect here for leverage activities to the change management, so the Jiras or the ServiceNows or the tools that were in use at that moment, but connect that to the change management so you can allow with the security systems, you can allow or disallow a change on your platform and your application. The same for the requirement management. Remember, I was talking requirements, testing, what is made against what. Connect the test result to the requirements. This is the typical moment that you can do it. Okay, this is the typical moment where the banks in which we have been working have done it. And also for pushing features into production and not anymore programs or scripts or pieces of program or things that I don't really know how to identify them, and if I don't really know how to identify them, I don't really know how to make them depend from each other. So push features into production. So I'm starting to think about, rather than having programs or applications pushed into productions, I'm pushing features. So if I'm pushing features, it means that I allow the business to pull the features. So I want that feature, okay? I want the capacity of my customers to request an online loan available. This is the priority. So this is my feature, okay? And I want to pull it as soon as I can. And once more, add more security. Okay, more security means the security checks of the programs, the code scans. So embed in each environment, in each task that you will do, embed these new features in an automated way so that going through testing or going through staging will have you do all these different actions and different management of your code, okay? The very last one, so the transition from the third to the fourth generation, I would say focus on your business on the fourth generation. So this is really, we can achieve with a real release automation, release management platform that's pulling from the business of the features, of the programs, the applications that you want to put into production. So it's feasible only with a purpose-built release automation, release management platform, which is scalable, which will allow you to do things like self-service, things that you have been hearing around in the main sessions, and also in some of the breakout sessions. Basically, it's shifting the effort, okay, from the tool chain that we have been trying to put together until the product itself. So give the hand to the business. Most of the time, so it's model-based. These tools are tooling are model-based, and they are really some proper application release automation platforms. Some best practices on this that allow you the approval process. Okay, the complete approval process, which can be manual, which can be automated. I want to allow the transition from one environment to another when my test is at least 80% correct, and I do not have any high risk violations on my code analysis, for example. This is an automated step for the next environment. So it allows you that approval process to have an audit trail, which for the financial services company is extremely important. Okay, there is Sarbanes-Oxley here. There is Basel 2 and 3 more in Europe. These compliance paths require a lot of attention to the audits. Okay, if you are able to produce an audit on what you have done, putting in the audit information all the things that you have done with all the toolings in which you have been investing over the years, then you leverage. Okay. Another best practice, that self-service catalog. You allow new applications, new users, new features to be onboarded directly and to be part of your information system without spending nearly anything on configuring the different tools, because it's all part of the process. So you onboard with the self-service, and it's all in your system directly. So if I do, I mean, the four generations, from the scripting, the version control systems, until the pipeline-based, so the second generation with things that like environment management, like endeavors or things like this. The third generation, so the change management, the automated testing, until the complete configurable platforms, you have all these toolings for which most of the time the fixed part has already been paid by the companies, because you have also that trend to transition into this tooling from owned tools, okay, so tools that have been bought by companies years ago, for which they still pay the maintenance, okay, to some subscription-based tooling. So the subscription-based tooling that you are paying for today will allow you to will allow you to get more money back from what you had invested in at the very beginning. So to say it in another way, you are today most of the time on the OPEX, while you used to be over the years on the CAPEX. Okay? So this is also an important shift from the banking industry to be able to spend more on the OPEX slide rather than on the CAPEX slide. If I go a little bit more in the few minutes that are remaining in the technical challenges, what did I have before and what do I have after, okay, after putting all this tooling together. Mapping service dependencies. Before, it was extremely difficult to trace, okay, the service dependencies. The knowledge was in the teams, it was in the human mind, it was in the mind of the guy I was talking about at the very beginning that left the company 10 years ago, and then nobody knows really what is the risk of putting in production a new version of something. After, you get dependencies, because you define dependencies at artifact level, at application level, at the level that you choose, okay? The verification is easy because everything is automated. So you can, when you deploy, make a condition of dependency from one application version to another. And you have all the reporting capabilities that help you know what is where. What is where? Environment. Was very difficult to have the history of an environment or the inventory of the environment. Now it's easy, okay? Because the inventory is automated. You have, I mean, it's just a screenshot of some microservices running somewhere on the platform because they have been installed with a release automation tool. Also, to compare environments, it's very easy. You just have the inventory and you just have to define what columns do you want, and you have to direct compare. Security and compliance, the same. Before, security was a specific path, okay? And security audit took ages to complete. After, it's part of the process, okay? You've heard about DevSecOps in some sessions. Now it's part of the process. The audit trail is easier. SOX, Bazel, I was talking about, and we have an immediate information gathering and proof for the compliance. Okay, so you know what has been done and where. I just finished with the business continuity. business continuity. Before, we had some small deployment windows. It was difficult to install, and we needed to reschedule the maintenance windows when something was wrong. After, you have some advanced capabilities. So the blue-green deployment, the capability to rolling deploy. It's robust, it's tested, and you have also some real rollback capabilities. So even if it fails, then you have the ability to go back and to reschedule your maintenance windows. I just finished with the reporting because it's extremely important to have some information back from what you are doing in order to be able to have your process and what you're doing evolve. So about deployments, about releases, how am I doing, and about information gathering for making the right decision in terms of how you will evolve. So thank you very much for your attention.